Hi there, and today we're going to talk through a property on July Road in Truebrook in Liverpool. And with that in mind, let's get into it. So I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. So there's very little information on this other than it's a tenanted property in Liverpool, £82,000. I've spoken with the agent, and the story here is that the seller is just waiting till they get a high enough offer. So it could sell anytime. It's just really what number buys it, as it were. And if you're familiar about, well, the backstory to this is that we had a client who was interested in it, wasn't that interested. We got overzealous. We thought, let's get the booking in, get the viewer in. And we got the viewer done, and obviously client's not paying for the viewer, of course, because it was our mistake for booking in the viewer too quickly. But we do have quite an interesting property on our hands and some very interesting capital growth stuff going on, which I want to talk about. Now, the reason this property looks different to the other ones is because during the World War II, Liverpool was very heavily bombed. And I expect this was a bomb site, and therefore they just built this terraced house there in the 50s. And I expect that it's reasonably well built. I don't mean that it's good looking, because it certainly isn't, but it will have damp proofing, and it should be reasonably thermally efficient and all of those things that we like. Anyway, with that in mind, let's carry on. And it is the most basic of basic interiors. It's the cheapest of laminate flooring. These photographs are not helpful, but we do have video footage, which we're going to look at in a minute. And I suppose a few things, at least it's got high ceilings. It's very bare bones. That's 2 10-litre tubs of paint, and there's a roller. So obviously, whoever it was that was selling this decided to give it a tart up before they sold it. Now, we don't have a floor plan to speak of, so it's very difficult to judge what's going on here. One thing I would...
other properties around, and I will try to find a floor plan.
Whenever I see staircases like this is typically 1950s to 1980s. And it wouldn't pass building regulations today. All the angles look a bit weird because it's got a wide angle lens, but it wouldn't pass building regs today, and that's why I know. But whenever a new staircase is put into a house, it usually means there was a big renovation. So the essentials like straight walls, I assume, we're going to see in a minute, flat ceilings, damp proofing, all of that good stuff should be done. I say should be. I'm always a bit suspect with properties that have had a recent renovation, because you never quite know. There could be damp lurking under there. And of course, the repainting just hides all the nastiness. Maybe. But the fact that this building is relatively modern tells me that it's probably okay when it comes to damp proofing. Now, let's open a couple of pictures first and we go from there. Oh, don't you love those beautiful, clean carpets? Nice. Green. Okay, more green. Now, this fuse board looks old to me, and that probably needs updating. It's not a big job. It's like a 350, 400 pound job to sort out. But the only issue is that when you have old wiring and an old fuse board, and you update the fuse board, then you can get the fuse board tripping a lot. It should be okay, because the wiring isn't that ancient. But the bottom line is that this is not a modern fuse box, so maybe that needs changing. Gas meter looks okay.
They said that heating controllers, room thermostat need to be improved.
Right, okay.
The APC.
Yeah. The other thing is that looks like it's got a vent in the roof, and it's concrete tiles, which are pretty good. they are straightforward things, and they're the good thing about concrete tiles are that if they fail, you can slot another one in. Whereas with a slate roof, if a slate fails, you have to tingle the roof, it's called. It's where you put a little strip of metal and you run it down and you curl it up and it holds the slate in place, and it gets messy after a while because you get lots of them on a roof. Anyway, there we are. It all looks okay. Let's move on to the next thing. And badly decorated, but anyway, whatever. And
but have tenants,
what I'm interested in is just the walls. Are the walls flush? Is everything straight? And that looks like trunking or something. Everything looks like it's flat, if that makes sense. It's not all over the place. You can see in the light here, you can see some undulations in the plaster, but that's okay. It's acceptable. It's got double glazing and a very basic galley kitchen with basic flooring. It all looks basic, and that looks to me like it's at least a 15-year-old kitchen, I would have thought. And that flooring looks okay. It's just the most basic of basic accommodation. And the reason you leave your motorbike inside is because if you leave it outside, it gets stolen. And there we have some very dirty... I think the guy can't believe how dirty those carpets are. And
yeah, I guess
all of this looks okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing really wrong with it as such. Excuse me.
Just dirty.
Yeah, and that's all right. Just needs a bit of a clean, it's already had a bit of paint and decorated. Could probably do with some tidying up of the edging and just to improve the quality of it, but relatively modern doors as well. So it tells me that this place has had a fairly deep renovation at some point in the last 20 years.
Was sold in 2016 was sold last.
16?
Yeah, so 6 years ago.
Interesting. How much?
Checking. 50K. So I guess they fully renovate. Now they're asking. I'm checking the photos. This property was sold 95, 2005, 2006, and after it sold in 2016. I think it was renovated between 2005 2006.
Okay.
Because in 2005 it was sold for 47K, and in 2006 was sold for 75K. So basically 30K more. So I guess they renovated then.
Yeah. So there's a really interesting thing going on here with capital growth in this area. Oh, look at that nice man. Okay, we've got a bit of damp up there, so possibly a leaking tile or something like that.
Yes, as they write that the roof is bad.
Yeah.
The viewer guy.
Yeah, I suspect, like I said, it's a concrete roof, and they are typically fairly straightforward to deal with. You know, if you have a cracked slate, you literally just lift up the other slates and slot the thing in. It's one of the benefits of these. Now that looks like a pretty modern boiler to me, which is good. It's probably a combi boiler, I suspect. It would make sense that it is. Well, I think it's a reasonably nice property so far, condition-wise. It is cheap, and it is obviously very basic, but it's okay. It needs a few things, I suspect. And I suppose the person selling it is just some entrepreneur thinking, right, the market's right, I'm going to get rid of it and make a few quid. I suppose. I don't know. Who knows? Now, the next thing is the capital growth story around here, which I think is kind of interesting. This whole area is very poor. A lot of C1s renting around here, so a huge proportion of private rented, unusually high in my view. But it kind of makes sense because these are the kind of properties that people rent because they're just passing through, as it were.
Yeah, and it's not far away from Liverpool, from central Liverpool, and also it's just because it's cheaper to rent here than central Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like one of the reasons.
And one of the odd things about this area is there isn't that much crime. So
Yeah,
there's a bit more than a crime a month on average is kind of like urban standard, and this is slightly above. So it's a poor, slightly crimey area that you would live in not really out of choice. So you would live out of choice, but you wouldn't be proud to live in a place like this, I would say. What were you going to say, Martin?
Yeah, but it's really close to the stadiums. Also, it's close to one of the largest park in Liverpool. So
yeah, it's
a nice location, by my.
Yeah, and there's an awful lot of this kind of housing in this area. So I guess it's a pretty standard choice for a lot of people. It's just there it is. You can rent it. It's going to cost you whatever it's going to cost you. We're going to find out shortly. So, okay, let's look at the capital growth on this because that's a really interesting, there's some really interesting stuff going on with this. And it makes it one of the capital growth hotspots for the country. But in my view, it's kind of weak capital growth, and I'll explain. So just to refresh, markets work in cycles. They've done this for as long as they're sophisticated property markets, I guess. And so this data goes back to 1845. It's from Schroders, who are a merchant bank, and they do these reports on real estate occasionally. And each peak represents a peak in house price, multiple of wages to house price, starting at around 13 times wages for a house back in 1845, dropping all the way down to about two times wages for a house in just after First World War. And then it's kind of carried on ever since, and now it's crept back up. Main reason, lowering interest rates, I would have said. Basically, just it costs less to borrow, so therefore people borrow more and the prices go up. So yes, if you were lucky enough to be in the buying business late 90s and you could make it all work, you would have made a lot of money. Anyway, that's that. And then in terms of the property cycle, you have the crash, 2008 in this case. You have the bottom out, 2010, 2012 really. And then depending on which city you're in and just the local characteristics, then the recovery would have behaved broadly like this. But in Liverpool, it got very badly hit. I'll talk about that in a second. What's interesting, though, is that we're now in the boom phase. It all goes a bit nuts. And when people start telling you money, you can just make money falling over yourself in property, then that's a bad time. But we're not there yet. We've probably got another 3 to 4 years, and then that'll be it. For that cycle, then we move into the next. Now, what's interesting about this is that in 2003, property was cheap, really cheap in this area because there's so much terraced housing. And there was a big speculative market, and it rose by 142%. And in purchasing power terms, property median price for these terraced houses was going at 75 grand. So Liverpool was a very hot city back in that cycle. Then it crashed quite hard, to say the least. And you can see it dropped nearly 40%, which is heavy. But if you look at the prices from peak of market to now, and you adjust it for inflation, in other words, 75 grand in 2008 buys you around £100,000 of stuff today. And we can see the median price back in June 21. It's going to be a bit higher now, but overall, the market is still 30% below the high water mark of 2008. So what that tells me is that it got very overbought and crashed very hard. And it's only now that that market is beginning to come back. So if I look at, for example, higher level data, and I need to just, I'm kind of dwelling upon this because we don't do an awful lot of, we don't do a great deal in Liverpool, and I'm quite interested in it because I think there is an opportunity here, but as ever, one has to be careful. So L4, for example, we can see that that's gone up in nominally 9%, and the three-year nominal is 33% growth.
And this is in L6.
Yeah, it's very, so I'm trying to find, let me just hide that and then hopefully it'll come back if I show that layer. It may have got filtered out somehow. Let me just edit that very quickly. Normally, this is where I just pause things and I go.
But I can go over APC.
Yes, I don't know why I don't have L6 data. That's very strange. Anyway, all right. So I'll just carry on because I may as well. And then we get into the EPC stuff, which will be quite interesting for this property.
It's under 26, as you can see. It's not L6 data.
The
score, yes, here.
So got L13 here.
Oh, 13.
Yeah. Anyway, the fact is that central Liverpool, L1, L2, L3, is doing terribly, and that's because there are a lot of high-rise apartments there and they're just not selling. But people are looking for value, and they see value in these properties, these terraced houses and so on. So around here, for example, 62% growth, which is just astonishing. But it's very reminiscent of what we saw in the last cycle. In other words, there's a huge risk this thing is just going to get completely overbought if we're not careful. And the real question with Liverpool is whether it's got a strong enough long-term economy to handle a big downturn. And I've always said that I'm skeptical about that. But I think there is value to be had here. I just think it's relatively high risk. And I think it's very different to the Manchester story, which is one about an incredibly robust incredibly robust economy. Now, so here we are here. Here's the L6. So the data shows that it's relatively hard to rent property out because there's so much rental property around there. There's huge 1-year growth of 11% and huge 3-year growth. I think it's one of those places where there's a glut of rental accommodation and it'll rent eventually. You might wait a month or two to rent it out if it's in good order.
I want to say this is tenanted already, so.
Yeah, it is. So that's a good thing. But what's the rent for that?
4 to 5, but it can go up. But
yeah.
I guess they're long tenancy. And I think even it can go up to 500, 525, maybe even 550.
Yeah.
But I think right now you can buy it, keep the tenants like a couple of months, and after clean the property, make new carpets, and rent it out again. You have like void of period of 1-2 months, but you will rent it for 500 or 550. So basically after that you will have more income, and then the yield will be great.
I think it'll present well. It'll present if it's presented better, like as you say, carpet and just some slightly better furniture. Some secondhand furniture will do it, but just nicer secondhand furniture. A couple of pictures on the wall, and just generally make it like less like a slum, basically.
Yeah, but okay. So basically, I will go share my screen and I'll speak about everything else. So basically, APC is the 66 meters square. That's totally okay
Good
for 2 bedroom.
size. Yeah.
Yeah, for 2 bedroom. It's
It's a generous enough
66.
size.
Yeah. So yeah,
Ooh, that's very
66.
close, isn't it? So that
Yeah.
could, are you confident it could nudge up to C?
Yeah. Basically, they said that the no insulation on top they don't have, but this is made 2000, so 7 years ago. And I want to add for this, when you zoom in, I can see like this only house like it have internal insulation.
Yeah, I would imagine it's a cavity wall. I don't know why they would say it's solid, but then I suppose the problem is that the person doing the EPC assessment won't be able to see through the mortar, and therefore they wouldn't know.
Yeah, so basically they said like to improve, you just need to improve the replace boiler with new, but maybe they replace it in the meantime because the boiler looks okay on the photos. You need heating controller to update. So basically with that you can improve to C. So basically
Well, that would be
it's
awesome.
yeah, if you need to, but for now it's like up to 2026 you don't have to, but if you need, that will not cost a lot. And this last sold here is a historical selling. As you can see, I guess then it was fully renovated between 2005 2006, so that's why the price goes so much up. Yeah, and after 2006, as you can 16 itself so low because the market then was like really down. So
yeah, well, it's the nature of Liverpool. It's just it's an interesting city, and I think there is value. It's just one. I think at the lower end of the market, it's okay.
yeah,
But in the mid spots, I don't know. It's okay if you go further out and you're in the suburbs. I think they're okay. But the issue, one of the issues with Liverpool is just the demographics are pretty messed up. But
yeah, so it's really close to center of Liverpool. As you can see here in the main road where you have a lot of buses on basically on both sides. Also you have like a train way. So, but you don't have nearby a stop. You have just here, but that's far away. So basically, it's really close to the park. It's really close to schools. So basically, you have a lot of stores here. So basically, also you're close to stadiums where if you decide to go to watch football. So yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about comparables, I guess.
Yeah. What I want? Yeah, there is no mining issue in Liverpool, so I will not be worried about this. So it's mining issues are, as you can see, this part on the properties here. So there is no any issues like risk. So what else I want to say? Yeah, this is the floor plan. The floor plan. This is the floor plan, and yep, it looks okay. The floor plan is okay. And is the bathroom here as from 1 bedroom?
No, I thought it was. Let me just check the video again. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. That in fact it was on a on a corridor. I'm just having a look. Yeah, so it's off a corridor. So at the front of the house, they've split it, and then you've got a corridor leading to the bathroom, and they've kind of.
Okay, here.
Sorry, the back of the house. I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, like here.
So it's fine. It's not.
They are the like a whole. Yeah. Okay. So comparables. This is. I will go for comparables. As you can see here, a lot of selling and. Sorry, it's gonna get me out. And last time it's doing me all the time that. Sorry about this. I will just go for. Basically, we use Rightmove Plus. So.
It's a pro pro version of Rightmove. So if you are an estate agent, you can get access to this. So one of our shareholders is an estate agent, so we got access.
This is one example. This is for 55 only, but this is not comparables. This is 69, 78, 77, 90, but it's not comparable. All the time, something is logging me out all the time. There is some bug with, but basically what I check, I think the owner asking a little bit a lot than it should be. I think 77k up to 80k. It's the price what we need. But as you can see, like the property now are renting for 575, 560, 55, 550. So
yeah, I just get the impression with the seller that it's some white boy who's just kind of trying it on, slapping a bit of paint, hoping for the best, and waiting to see who turns up. So that's fine. I think it's an all right acquisition. What sort of yield will it achieve then?
Right now on 425 and 820 what they ask, that's 6.22, 6.2. So, but on the asking price. But basically, I think if you renovate, like spend 3k to painting again and put the new carpets, then you can rent it up to 550 and 550. But let's say let's say that you will not rent for 550. Let's say for 500, if you increase it by, and you spend 2k and you buy it for the asking price, then you have 7% of yield, which is great.
Yeah, it is good.
So yeah, let's say, but
so it's seven. It's 7 at 500. See, so yeah.
Can you share your screen?
I can. Here we go. Right, and here we are. So 7.32 for £500, 82 grand. Sticking 2 grand in. So it owes you 84. So that's 7.3, which is a good return. And I think you will see some good capital gain over the next few years as people seek value and they try and buy these cheap properties. My fear is that Liverpool is just economically fragile, and when the crash comes, it'll hit it hard. That's all. So if you accept the potential downside of Liverpool, then great. It's a nicer learner, and we'll give you a bit of income.
Yeah, I think this property is.
Should we score it?
Yeah.
And I'll just hide all these just because they get in the way. And
can you zoom a little bit?
I will, yeah. I'll just hide the thing first. And here we go. So this is July Road.
Yeah.
Remember the rest. I'll put it all in later. Condition. I'd give it a 3.5. So
let's say 7, maybe. Yeah, it's okay.
Fundamentals are okay.
No, yeah. I give more because just it's standard, so it's normal to not be fully clean.
Yeah, but the main
Depends
thing,
of people.
like quality of the brick, quality of the plasterwork is good. It's not a wreck.
EPC is good.
Not a damn.
When you think for all properties, even better, but let's not be that much.
Yeah. So, what do you give it on location?
Yep, it's a nice location. I think. Yeah, I think 4.
Well, it's not a great area, is it really? I would give it a 3 for the area.
Yeah.
Crime, actually, it's not too bad. I'm going to give it a 3.5. It's certainly not peaceful, but it's not. You'd not want to be walking home late at night if you're a girl in the dark in that kind of area. It's a bit. Nah. Demographics, it's quite low. I'm going to give it a 3. It's just. It's poor and it's deprived. Capital growth, well, that's an odd one. It depends on how you look at it. If you say short-term capital growth, it's a monsterly good. If you say robust growth for long-term and the whole story, is the overall story good? It's okay. I give it a 3.5. I don't rate the growth that highly, even though short-term growth is exceptional, the longer-term growth I'm nervous about, just because when you look at the long-term growth numbers going way back, they're very unhealthy. And whenever I see areas which are 30% down on previous 2008 peak, I always think, well, that never really recovered, did it? Even though it should have done, because money, if you remember, interest rates were 5% back then, base interest rates. So when we think about that, money got a whole lot cheaper, and therefore why so anyway, I'm just saying economy not so great. Sell time, I would say 3.5, little sell. It's not red hot market.
Maybe one, yeah. Price expensive, I think. It's not expensive when you compare the last selling, like it's going around 8K, but he's too optimistic.
Yeah, he's cheeky.
So I think 3.
Yeah, I agree. And red time,
this is tenanted.
Yeah, but just as a thing, you know, if you had to rent it out, how long would it take? And it would take a while.
Just yield is good. Yeah, yield. This is like more yield proper. Yeah, so 4.5.
Yeah, this is the only thing that really makes this property shine. So you can see it's below average, but the hotspot is the yield. And
we are really careful about the old property and cheaper property to be okay, like EPC to be good and so on. So basically, I think this property for this price, if you want to buy this around this kind of price, it's a good one. I will try to have it for 78K up to 80K. Like,
yeah,
maybe if you really like it, then 82K is okay price, because it's tenanted. But we will check what kind of tenants they are. We will call the agent. We will find out more about them.
Well, I think we saw a picture of we saw him in the video. Just young geezer, young guy, sort of leering out at the camera.
Yeah, okay. I guess they will be okay. Like, it's in my case, if you want to buy cash, like 2-3 properties and refinance later, this is like a good start, because you will have yield, and after with those money, when you will refinance it, the property will grow up a little bit in value, and then you will.
Yeah, for sure. It'll. You're right. It's going to see some capital gain, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think if you have portfolio or if you want to buy a few, then this is a good one. I think, because it's nice spot in Liverpool.
Yes.
As we know, we are not really like a fan of Liverpool for investment, but this property is good. That's why we suggest it.
It's all good. All right. Well, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.